Also, it may be that the moon is not inhabited and not habitable. There are many astronomers who say that the moon has virtually no atmosphere because when a star is passed over by the moon, the star is not refracted, according to them. See Clerk's History of Astronomy, page 264. That, basing his calculations upon the fact that a star is never refracted out of place when occulted by the moon, Professor Comstock of Washburn Observatory had determined that this Earth's atmosphere is 5,000 times as dense as the moon's. I do not think that in this secondary survey of ours we had pretty well shaken off our old opposition, the astronomers. However, with something of the kindliness that one feels for a renewed meeting with the familiar, here we are at home with the same old kind of demonstrations, the basing of laborious calculations upon something that is not so. See Index of Monthly Notices RAS. Many instances of stars that have been refracted out of place when occulted by the moon. See the Observatory 24-212, 313, 315, 345, 414. English Mechanic 23-197, 279, 26-229, 52-Index Atmosphere 81-60, 84-161, 85-108. In the year 1821, Grothendieck announced that he had discovered a city of the moon. He described its main thoroughfare and branching streets. In 1826, he announced that there had been considerable building and that he had seen new streets. This formation, which is north of the crater Schroeter, has often been examined by disagreeing astronomers. For a sketch of it, in which a central line and radiating lines are shown, see the English Mechanic 18-638. There is one especial object upon the moon that has been described and photographed and sketched so often that I shall not go into the subject. For many records of observation, see the English Mechanic and l'Astronomie. It is an object shaped like a sword near the crater Burt. Anyone with an impression of the transept of a cathedral may see the architectural here. Or it may be a mound similar to the mounds of North America that have so logically been attributed to the mound builders. In a letter published in the Astronomical Register 20-167, Mr. Birmingham calls attention to a formation that suggests the architectural upon the moon. A group of three hills in a slightly acute angled triangle and connected by three lower embankments. There is a geometric object or marking shaped like an X in the crater Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes. Striking, symbolic-looking thing or sign or attempted by means of something obviously not topographic to attract attention upon this earth in the crater Peloponnesus. Reticulations like those of a city's squares in Plato, and there is a structural-looking composition of angular lines in Grasandi. Upon the floor of Lithro are 6 or 7 spots arranged in the form of the Greek letter gamma. This arrangement may be of recent origin, having been discovered January 31st, 1915. The Greek letter makes difficulty only for those who do not want to think easily upon this subject. For a representation of something that looked like a curved wall upon the moon, see l'Astronomie 1888-110. As to appearances like viaducts, see l'Astronomie 1885-213. The lunar craters are not in all instances the simple cirques that they are commonly supposed to be. I have many different impressions of some of them. I remember one sketch that looked like an owl with a napkin tucked under his beak. However, it may be that the general style of architecture upon the moon is Byzantine, very likely or not so likely domed with glass, giving the dome effect that has so often been commented upon. So then, the little nearby moon, and it is populated by Lilliputians. However, our experience with agreeing ideas have been what it has been. We suspect that the Lunarians are giants. having reasonably determined that the moon is 100 miles in diameter, we suppose it is considerably more or less. A group of astronomers have been observing extraordinary lights in the lunar crater Plato. The lights had definite arrangement. They were so individualized that Burt and Elgar and the other selenographers who had combined to study them had charted and numbered them. They were fixed in position but rose and fell in intensity. It does seem to me that we have data of one school of communicationists after another coming into control of efforts upon the moon. At first, our data related to single lights. They were extraordinary, and they seem to me to have been signals, but there seems to be nothing of the organization that now does seem to be creeping into the fragmentary material that is the best that we can find. The grouped lights in Plato were so distinctive, so clear, and even brilliant that if such lights had ever shone before, it seems that they must have been seen by the Schroederers, Gruthiensens, Beers, and Madlers, who had studied and charted the features of the moon. For several of Gledhill's observations from which I derive my impressions of these lights, see Rept. B.A. 1871-80. I can only liken them to the small disks of stars seen in the transit instrument, just like small stars in the transit instrument upon a windy night. In August and September 1869 occurred a notable illumination of the spots in Group 1. It was accompanied by a single light upon a distant spot. February and March 1870, illumination of another group. April 17th, 1870, another illumination in Plato, but back to the first group. As to his observations of May 10th and 12th, 1870, Burt gives his opinion that the lights of Plato were not effects of sunlight. Upon the 13th of May, 1870, there was an extraordinary display. According to Burt, 27 lights were seen by Pratt and 28 by Elgar, but only 4 by Gledhill in Brighton. Atmospheric conditions may have made this difference, or the lights may have run up or down a scale from 4 to 28. As to independence of sunlight, Pratt says as to this display that only the fixed charted points so shown and that other parts of the crater were not illuminated, as they would have been to an incidence common throughout. In Pratt's opinion, and I think in the opinion of the other observers, these lights were volcanic. It seems to me that this opinion arose from a feeling that there should be something of an opinion. The idea that the lights might have been signals was not expressed by any of these astronomers that I know of. I note that though many observers were at this time concentrating upon this one crater, there are no records findable by me of such disturbance of detail as might be supposed to accompany volcanic action. The clear little lights seem to me to have been anything but volcanic. The play of these lights of Plato, their modulations and their combinations like luminous music or a composition of signals in a code that even in this late day may be deciphered. It was like orchestration, and that something like a baton gave direction to light 22 upon August 12, 1870, to shine a leading part. Remarkable increase of brightness. Number 22 subsided, and the leading part shone out in number 14. It too subsided, and number 16 brightened. Perhaps there were definite messages in a Morse-like code. There is a chance for the electricity in somebody's imagination to start crackling. Up to April 1871, the stelographers had recorded 1,600 observations upon the fluctuations of the lights of Plato and had drawn 37 graphs of individual lights. All graphs and other records were deposited by W.R. Burt in the library of the Royal Astronomical Society, where presumably they are to this day. A. Champollion, May someday decipher hieroglyphics that may have been flashed from one world to another.